The occupiers of Iraq want to legalize their illegitimate presence on our land, so it will be possible for them to tamper with the security of the homeland and the citizens, and to continue to plunder the country's resources and thus increase the poverty and deprivation. Grand Ayatollah As-Sayyid Kazim al-Husseini al-Ha'iri.
Welcome back to Inside Iraq. We are discussing the current negotiations between the US and al-Maliki governments for a long-term security arrangement with Kamran Qaradaghi, Salah al-Ubaidi and Faraydun Hilmi. Faraydun Hilmi, the Iranians are extremely anxious. They don't know exactly what lies inside the text of this agreement. They think somehow, one way or another, American troops in Iraq will be the springboard to attacking Iran.
Yes, well, I'm not really bothered about the Iranians or what's going to happen to them. Of course they will be worried. They are worried that the Americans will force down the throats of the Iraqis an agreement that will be really a treaty of enslavement, a deed for the enslavement of the Iraqi people. And then after that, they will be made to do whatever the Americans want. Now, I think that the whole thing started when the Iraqis were promised that the government was going to ask the Americans to withdraw their troops according to a timetable. Instead of a timetable, now we've got an everlasting agreement that will keep the Americans in Iraq forever and give them powers legally to do anything they want. Al-Maliki is not worried about what the agreement is going to do to the Iraqi people. He is only worried about what it may do to the Iranians or whoever else might be affected by this, which is really atrocious. This just shows that this man and his few government officials are actually just in the pocket of the Americans and doing exactly what they are telling.
Perhaps Faraydun Hilmi, he should be worried what might happen to him, Kamran Qaradaghi. The question is, why now? Why the rush? Why before July 31st? This president is a lame duck, President Bush. He will be leaving office. Why not wait after the election, whether the Iraqi election or the American election?
Well, first of all, let me say that it's very interesting to hear such contradicting evaluations of the government. Sometimes they say that Maliki is in the pocket of the Americans, others say that he is in the pocket of the Iranians, so let them make up their minds. But then your question, answering your question, it is not a rush. It hasn't been now, it has been discussed more than a year ago, as I explained, because...
But why July 31st is a sacrosanct date? Why not wait until the next president or after the Iraqi parliamentary elections?
Well, we don't know. The Iraqi side is not saying that they will reach an agreement by July. This is the Americans are expressing this wish, but it doesn't mean that it will be definitely in July.
Can I offer
negotiation?
Go ahead, Faraydun.
It's a negotiation.
I think my answer
it's a negotiation process, and it is going on, and we don't know how it will end.
July is a very important month in the Iraqi calendar. Many of the revolutions, especially the 14th of July revolution of 1958, occurred in July, of course, and it is actually 50 years from the date of the overthrow of the king. And the Americans are planning on building 50 bases. Surprise, surprise.
Are you saying there is a parallel between the 1930 agreement and this agreement between the British and the Iraqis now? What might happen to al-Maliki, which happened to Nouri Saeed? Is that what you are saying, Faraydun Hilmi?
No, I think we either discuss this issue seriously.
Al-Maliki and his clique. Then it happened to
go ahead, Kamran Qaradaghi.
I don't think this is serious, really. This discussion is going out of really, it's not serious talking about 50 years. Americans are thinking about 50 bases. This is not really the real issue. The real issue, we are talking why this is necessary.
Let me ask Salah al-Ubaidi one of the serious issues, Kamran Qaradaghi, if you don't mind, just a second. Salah al-Ubaidi, the agreement does not stipulate the number of troops and it does not stipulate bases. Ryan Crocker, the American ambassador in Baghdad, says the agreement forswears bases and this is not going to be a treaty run by the US Senate. It's going to be by an executive orders signed by the president. How do you look at that?
the coming elections is very hot in competition between both senators, between Obama and between McCain. And we know that McCain is adopting all the points of view of President Bush. So in order to give McCain a good chance, in order to succeed, Bush has to do something political, something very acceptable, to say that the Americans has achieved a very good fruit from Iraq after 5 years of war, 5 years of a very big budget to compete.
Faridun Hilmi, if this agreement is signed by the Iraqi government, the question is, will Iraqi parliament endorse it?
Well, I don't believe there is an Iraqi parliament. I think there are a few people that represent, that are appointed by a number of the so-called leaders who were brought with the Americans. And they will do as their leaders tell them.
But in fairness to the Iraqi government, Faridun Hilmi, they said any agreement signed by the government, it will be put to a referendum.
A referendum is different from parliament, isn't it? I mean, parliament will probably just rubber stamp it, especially if they are offered $3 million, as they say, if they sign. I mean, $3 million is beyond the dream of any of those people who are sitting in the green zone today.
Kamran Qaradaghi, explain.
Well, I don't know. I really, let me just say that, you know, all we are hearing from Faridun Hilmi is speculations and things about paying parliamentarians money. I don't know from where
this is not speculation, idea, Cameron. It's been in the news everywhere. What are you talking about?
Excuse me, please. This is not
denying everything.
This is not serious. Excuse me. This is not serious.
You're just denying everything because you have nothing to say.
There is a process. There is a process in Iraq. Iraq has a constitution. There is a process of how to deal with treaties and agreements. According to the constitution, the government has the right to negotiate.
This is the nonsense they are trying. They are trying to propagandize everybody with it.
After that, it goes to Parliament. Then Parliament will vote on it. Parliament is
before we reach that stage, Kamran Qaradaghi, there are many stipulations so far that has been leaked, and that is, this agreement will exempt any U.S. citizen from prosecution by the Iraqi court. It is going to give them the rights to detain people, to incarcerate people for a long time. This will be not acceptable to the Iraqis. Let me get a comment from you and then from Salah Al-Ubaidi.
So. I don't think it is acceptable, and you know, it is all still in the process of negotiations. We haven't seen. Have you seen a copy of the
Nobody has
draft
seen, but
agreements?
the leaks
Nobody
normally
have seen it. So why make this kind of speculations?
In that case, let me put a hypothetical question to Salah Al-Ubaidi. Salah Al-Ubaidi, you are objecting to this agreement on principle. You don't want it no matter what. But let's suppose that the agreement is revealed to Parliament and to the political parties, and you have found some provisions in it. Will that be the death nail for this agreement?
Let me tell you something very important for us. This agreement, the Iraqis went to negotiate about it without any kind of referendum, without any kind of points have been collected from the points of view of all the parliamentary important parties. The Iraqi League went to the negotiations without any kind of background, none by the parliament.
Finally, Faridun Hilmi, just comment on what Salah Al-Ubaidi just said about the nonchalant attitude the Iraqi government went into negotiating this agreement.
The Iraqi government is not negotiating at all. They're just trying to prepare the people of Iraq for the signature of this horrible thing, which they call an agreement. It's not an agreement at all. It is something which is being forced down the throat of the people. I'm surprised that Cameron says it's all speculation. He doesn't seem to be reading the news or looking at television or newspapers or anything. If he says everything I say is speculation, then he's probably been asleep for the past 2 months. Anyhow, on the one hand he says it is not acceptable On the one hand, he says it's not acceptable. On the other, he says it's good for the Kurds and it's good for all the Iraqis. Now, that is contradiction.
Fine,
that is
the final word is for Kamran Qaradaghi. Make it short and make it sweet. Go ahead.
Yes, what I want to say that an agreement with the United States is in the interest of the Kurds and of Iraq. It is very necessary to regulate the presence of the troops in Iraq.
We will find out what the future holds for this agreement and its consequences on Iraq and on the region. Kamran Qaradaghi, Salah Al-Ubaidi, Faridun Hilmi. Gentlemen, thank you for being guests on Inside Iraq. To access the show and to send us your comments, please go to aljazeera.net/English. That's all the time we have for this week. Join us next week when we take another look inside Iraq. Goodbye.